All right, one of the things I wanted to do here at Ahrma is pick out the neatest bike here, and it's really no contest. This Britten behind us, Bob Robbins owns it. And Bob, tell us about the first time you saw a Britten.
First time I saw a Britten was at Daytona, and like everyone else, I was in total awe. Watching a guy plug a computer into a motorcycle just didn't make any sense to me. It's a beautiful machine and was taken with it ever since, and somehow, some lucky way, I wound up owning this.
Very neat. A lot of you have seen Brittens in museums. Yours is not a museum piece. Talk about your outlook on what this Britten should be doing.
I think it's important to share it live and see it, hear it, experience it. And when I knew it was for sale, the first thing I thought was it's got to go back on the racetrack. It was in hibernation for 18 years and was rebuilt in '96 for that, just to become a showpiece, and I don't knock that by any means, but it's not what I'm about.
Very cool. Ahrma, the Britten is here. It's awesome, and supposedly there's some big plans for Barber Ahrma this year. What's happening?
Absolutely. There should be a minimum of 4 Brittens on the racetrack, similar to what we're doing here for some exhibition riding. And since they're former racers, exhibition means just don't crash it. Andrew Stroud should be there. Stephen Briggs on my bike, who rode it in the past, and we believe that Jim Hunter's bike and also Virgil Elling's bike will be there as well.
Very good. And guys, Jim Hunter and I have been talking. I'm hoping to ride that thing at Barber. Bob, walk this way. Let's get out of the way. Take a look at this Britten. Wondering what these two young, handsome men have in common. We're both lucky enough to have raced a Britten. And Stephen Briggs, they call him Briggsy. He was running world-level Barrow stuff. And Briggsy, how did the Britten get into your hands?
Long story. Guy called John Shan. They were looking for another rider. Andrew was the rider at the time. He was riding for the factory. Roberto Crepoli, who was the owner of this bike at the time, he needed another rider because Andrew was sort of dedicated to the factory bike. And John and Roberto really wanted to do the full World Championship event, which was just sort of allocated that year. So, long story short, my name popped up. I was in Europe at the time riding for Yamaha, Netherlands Yamaha. And so I wasn't too far away. Short trip down to Italy, met Roberto. Next thing I know, 2 weeks later, jumped on this thing for the first time at Thruxton and put it on pole. First time I'd ever ridden it. Funnily enough, I'd never ridden big 4-strokes. I'd come straight from 250 Grand Prix. To me, the bike just felt like a 250 with a superbike engine in it. It was just easy, yeah.
The other thing that we have in common is we both crashed a Britten, haven't we? So, and so we have that in common, which we're not that proud of that. Final thought before we leave this Britten go is best things about riding it. What really stands out to you?
It's funny now, 20 years on, people keep asking me that. What's so special about it? And the easiest thing I can explain it, it's like riding a 250 Grand Prix bike with a really big V-twin, like a Panigale engine in it. It's so light and maneuverable, especially at high RPM in the sweepers. It just moves from one side to the other. It's so easy to move compared to, say, let's say a super bike. So obviously the power's one thing and the brakes and all that, but you can still use that chassis even though it's got that much power. So it's probably comparable, I'm guessing, to a MotoGP bike back in the day. You know, it was really, as a 4-stroke, it was a leap above sort of everything else. Everything else at the time was 2-stroke orientated. So that was probably my biggest thing, is just the ability to maneuver around so easy on the track and still have that power to just missile it down the straight.
Very cool. Briggsy, will we see you at Barber for the Ahrma thing?
I think so, yeah. That's kind of the plan. I've been retired from racing for about 5 years, but Bob sort of dragged me out and said, "Oh, here's a bike, you better go and ride it." And I was slowly just spending the weekend just kind of getting back into it. So it's coming back slowly.
All right, guys, thanks.